This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. The burial land had always been under the control of the Blood God Palace. It was a famous mountain and treasure land in the eastern region. Countless martial artists had hidden there to cultivate. However, after the Great Demon Incident, the seals were all opened, and the changes that followed were the loss of spiritual chi. It became a place of little value. In addition, the demon tribulation had killed too many martial artists. This once famous treasure land for individual cultivators had suddenly become desolate. Yunxiao flew out of the burial land and swept the area with his divine will. He found only a dozen or so martial artists, and they were all weak. He could only hear two people whispering below. "Senior brother, as expected, there's nothing good for free. The spiritual energy here is not as good as before. No wonder the people from the Blood God Palace cancelled the charging point." That's right. If we knew this would happen, we wouldn't have to spend so many vitality stones to teleport here. Now, we can't even take back our vitality stones. However, there are benefits to having fewer people. No one will disturb us when we cultivate together. No matter where it is, as long as I'm with senior brother, it's better than any spiritual mountain or treasured land. Alas, martial arts is difficult. Senior brother only wants to achieve the supreme peak and have no other thoughts. Why? Is the peak of martial Tao so attractive to you? If he didn't even care about his beloved, then what was the use of being at the peak of martial arts? Senior brother, I won't give up. I'll be with you even if I die. Ingluo, why are you so stubborn? Sigh, all right. Senior brother has been moved by your true feelings. Let's be together forever, junior brother. Yunxiao's face was covered in sweat, and he almost vomited. His body trembled a few times as he hurriedly flew out of the burial land and arrived at the foot of the Blood God Palace. Only then did he let Ding Ling and Luo Yunsheng out, and the three of them walked side by side. There were many people on the road to Blood God Palace, and it was much more lively than usual. Perhaps the demonic tribulation had caused too much of a commotion, many of them came to watch the show, and some wanted to take advantage of the situation. There was an endless stream of people, and many people were discussing it. Even a supreme-grade profound-level weapon has appeared. It's simply shocking. Even the Void Martial Sovereign was beaten until he vomited blood. Later, when he thought of the people of the world and the people at dawn, he took a deep breath and unleashed his small universe to chase away the devil. The people from the Holy Region and the Sea of Soul Formation have come to investigate a few times, but there are no more clues. I heard that these two major forces have been holding an emergency meeting to come up with countermeasures to encircle and annihilate the devil. The Sacred Zone has even sent out several secretaries to encircle and annihilate the devils. The Blood God Palace has suffered heavy losses in this war. Almost all the experts after the Martial Supreme Realm are dead, and the remaining few have gone into seclusion. I'm afraid their cultivation base will drop by 1,000 miles. These few years, I've been occupying the resources of buried power, and with the connivance of Red Moon City, I've developed extremely quickly. I didn't expect to lose just like that. Life is really unpredictable. The seal of the earth vein of the burial land has been broken, and a large number of treasures that have fallen from the ancient times have been plundered by the martial artists who have unique remarkable abilities. Most of the people who are going to the burial land now want to see the traces of the battle that Lord Void Martial Sovereign has fought. They discussed the demonic tribulation along the way, and Yunxiao and the other two had a certain understanding of the current situation, but there was not much useful content. Ding Ling said worriedly, "What happened in Songwei City will have no less impact on the continent than the demonic tribulation. But I haven't heard anyone talking about it. I wonder how the situation in the Merchant Union and Tianyuan Chamber of Commerce is now." Although you're the backbone of Tianyuan Trading Company, Yunxiao comforted him, "It's not like such a huge organization will immediately go wrong without you. In addition, given the current situation, I reckon that your father should also appear." Ding Ling was shocked, and her face turned a little ugly. "You also think that my father is hiding his strength?" Are you deliberately hiding your strength? Yunxiao's eyes flickered as he said indifferently, don't be nervous. Although I've never met Ding Shan, he can't be a simple person since he was able to establish Tianyuan Trading Company and make it one of the permanent members of the business union. Furthermore, Yuan Bo's death is a tragedy. Speaking of this, Ding Ling's delicate body couldn't help but tremble, which was also the key that she couldn't figure out. There was no way Yuan Bo would joke with Yun Xiao before he died. Besides, who in the entire Songhua Yang city had the strength to kill the third elder of Myriad Treasure Store at that time? I don't want to believe it either, Yun Xiao sighed. But it's very likely that your father is the murderer of Yuan Bo. The few people who were chasing after Yuan Bo back then were not strong, which meant that Yuan Bo's physical body had been destroyed long ago, leaving only his ice soul remnant. And in that case, he didn't go to the Myriad Treasure Store for help, but came to me, who was extremely weak, instead. This proves that he doesn't dare to go to the Myriad Treasures store. Ding Ling's mind went blank. She had thought about these speculations before, but every time she thought of them, she did not dare to think about them anymore, because the result of her speculation was exactly the same as Yun Xiao's. Young Master Yun, do you mean that Ling's father is hiding in Myriad Treasures store? Yunsheng asked in surprise. Ding Ling's face turned pale. Even Luo Yunsheng had come up with such an obvious conclusion, but she had never dared to believe it. Looking at her, Yun Xiao could not bear to continue. Ling, you don't have to take it to heart. You can carefully observe it when you go back this time. If I'm not wrong, Tianyuan Trading Company is not in chaos without you. Instead, it has expanded its sphere of influence. Yunsheng said doubtfully, but Qian, under those circumstances, if Ding Shan had been present, he might not have been able to escape the great demon's sacrificial array, right? If it's Ge Ge. That's impossible, Yun Xiao interrupted. Your guess is absolutely impossible. If Ding Shan had been present at the time, the power of those demon clansmen would not have been enough to harm him. The situation was critical at the time, and we left first. There was no news of what happened after that. Perhaps the merchant union took some measures to block the news, and it's hard to predict the twists and turns in the future. Ding Ling's face looked a little better. She calmed down and said, Songhua's city was destroyed, and the merchant union has undergone great changes. Such a big thing can't be hidden even if you want to. Moreover, the young master of the Blade sect was also involved at that time, so I haven't heard anything about it yet. Perhaps an even bigger storm is brewing. After all, she had been in charge of the general situation in the merchant union for so many years, so she quickly sorted out her thoughts and said softly, I'll go back and take a look. If it's really as young Master Yun said, then it's just as well. I can finally put down this big burden. However, her eyes were filled with deep worry as she said with a slight tremble, if Yuan Bo was really killed by my father, what would you do, young Master Yun? Both Yun Xiao and Yunsheng trembled, and the three fell into silence at the same time. This was indeed a knot that could not be mentioned. Yuan Bo's debt must be settled, Yun Xiao said in a deep voice. But, if it was really your father's doing, I can spare his life. Ding Ling's eyes were slightly red. The fight between young Master Yun and her father was the last thing she wanted to see. Thank you so much, young Master Yun. Yunxiao's livid face was instantly soothed as he sighed and said, maybe things aren't what we think, but no matter what, Ding Shan is your father. I will try my best to restrain myself. Ding Ling choked and nodded slightly. The three of them suddenly became silent. They walked slowly on the path and soon arrived at the Blood God Palace's teleportation point. There were a total of 5 teleportation arrays, 4 small ones and 1 big one. Many people were waiting in line. Since teleportation was charged by the number of times and not the number of people, many people were whispering to each other, asking each other about their destination, and seeing if they could work together to save a lot of money. Brother, where are you going? Is it on the way to Jianyi City? I'm going to Tong City, but it's fine to build a house around it. I can save 3,000 mid-grade primordial stones. Although it'll take more effort, it'll be worth it. It's on the way. Since you're not going to Jianyi City directly, I'll pay you more. Good. Yun Xiao, the local tycoon, frowned when he heard this kind of money-saving conversation. Little brother, may I know where the three of you are heading to? A short and strong old man walked up with a smile. He kept sizing up the old man with a very capable look. No matter where I go, I'm not interested in being a partner, Yun Xiao said indifferently. Find someone else. Oh. The old man was stunned for a moment. He then revealed his yellow teeth and smiled. How bold. It seems that he must be the young master of a great family. These two beauties are also top-grade beauties. I wonder if you can bring this old man along? This old man is poor, I really can't afford the teleportation fee. Yun Xiao gave him a glance, and his pupils shrank imperceptibly. Then, he said coldly, what does it have to do with me if I can't afford it? Get lost, beggar. The old man was stunned for a moment, then immediately cried out, young man, don't you have any sympathy? Can't you transfer some positive energy? Reject indifference and start from the small things. Yunsheng laughed and said, this old man is quite interesting. Where are you going? If it's along the way, we can bring you along. The old man rolled his eyes and chuckled, I'll go wherever this little brother goes. Yunshao was about to speak when a loud shout suddenly came from behind him, all of you shut up. Teleport to an important place, do not whisper. If any of them were found to have escaped together, the primeval stones that they had paid would be confiscated and they would not be teleported. For those that haven't been paid yet, you'll have to pay 10 times more. The person who was roaring was the leader of the Blood God Palace. He slowly flew up and stood in the air. He looked at the crowd coldly and said, line up properly. If I find anyone whispering or secretly transmitting their voices, the teleportation fee will be doubled. Everyone's expression changed, but they did not dare to voice their anger. Although the Blood God Palace's strength had been greatly reduced, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. They were not people they could easily offend. Humph, a bunch of poor people. They want to teleport without money. Can't they fly? The person in charge cursed without restraint, his spittle flying everywhere. His eyes suddenly fell on Dingling and Luo Yunsheng, and he could not help but swallow. Then, he turned to Yun Xiao, and his face finally pulled a long face as he said in a deep voice, you over there, kid. Everyone looked curiously at where the person in charge was looking, and finally, their eyes fell on Yun Xiao. At this time, the old man was stunned for a moment, then he gave him a good luck look and also slipped into the crowd. Yun Xiao frowned as he raised his head and said, me? The person in charge snorted and beckoned him over with his index finger. Yun Xiao looked a little helpless. Why were there so many fools in the world? He gave the man a look as if he was looking at an idiot, then turned his head away, too lazy to pay him any attention. The person in charge's expression changed drastically as he said angrily, did you hear me calling you over? Yun Xiao dug his ear and said indifferently, if there's anything, just say it. My back and legs are a little sore. It's not convenient for me to come over. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. This young man was really audacious. He dared to be so arrogant in the Blood God Palace's territory. The person in charge was also stunned for a moment. He had not expected the other party to be so presumptuous. His eyes narrowed and he said coldly, you look very familiar, have I seen you somewhere before? Yun Xiao's heart twitched. When the Blood God Palace sealed the burial ground to search for him a month ago, they had almost spread the influence of his appearance to every corner of the world. He guessed that the man in front of him had forgotten about it. My memory's not good, I can't remember seeing you. The man suppressed his anger and grinned. It doesn't matter if you don't remember. Our Blood God Palace is currently short of people. We plan to commandeer the two young ladies beside you. Are you interested in joining us? Ding Ling and Luo Yunsheng were both furious, and their eyes glinted coldly. It turned out that he had come for them because of his lust. Join and be your palace master? Yun Xiao sneered. You want to be your palace master? I'm not interested. Palace master? I'm dying of laughter, you really won't die if you don't seek death. The person in charge walked over with a cold face. The aura on his body gradually rose, reaching the peak of the martial honor realm. Now, there were only a few martial supremes left in the Blood God Palace. His cultivation base was at the peak of martial honor, which was already intimidating. Yunqiao suddenly found it a little funny. You also know about the saying, if you don't seek death, you won't die? Laugh? I'll let you laugh as much as you want. Yunxiao's contemptuous look had completely infuriated the person in charge. He had also discovered that Yunqiao was a 5-stars martial supreme, but if he wanted to defeat a 4-stars martial supreme, he would have to kill him with one blow, and teach him an unforgettable lesson. With a slight turn of his body, Yunqiao dodged the man's punch in an extremely strange posture. Then, he moved his legs slightly and patted the man's waist with his left hand, flipping him over in the air. At the same time, a beam of light appeared on his right hand, turning his entire fist golden as he threw a punch. Bang! The person in charge's face took a heavy blow, and all his teeth were shattered. The upper half of his body was smashed into the ground, like a crooked date tree, stuck in the ground. As this was a teleportation zone, the ground was made of extremely strong 6th-grade materials. At this moment, with the person in charge as the center, the ground was cracking open, and the crack was dozens of meters long. This buy-in? All the onlookers were shocked. They looked on in disbelief, and their eyes were filled with horror. Even the Blood God Palace disciples in charge of the teleportation widened their eyes. Their brains had short-circuited. The pupils of the short and vigorous old man also suddenly shrank, revealing a grave expression. His eyes were bright, and it was unknown what he was thinking about. While the crowd was still in shock, Yunqiao flew backward, and a faint golden light appeared on his foot as he kicked the man in charge, sending him flying to the ground. After he finished his punch and kick, he strode toward the teleportation array with a cold face. He was also afraid that the experts from the Blood God Palace would rush over. That would be troublesome. Although there were few talents left, the Blood God was a genuine rank 6 martial emperor. He could easily suppress him. I have something urgent to attend to, so I need to cut the queue. Do you have any objections? He asked the person in charge of the teleportation. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Just a glance was enough to make people feel like they had fallen into an ice cellar. No objections. The staff member was so scared that his teeth were chattering. He forced a smile and said in a trembling voice, "There's something urgent, of course, I have to leave first." "Yes, and I don't have any money. What should I do?" Yunqiao continued to ask indifferently. "No problem." The man's emotions calmed down a little, and he laughed awkwardly. "We're all travelers, so who doesn't have difficulties? I've always reminded myself to be warm-hearted and to help others. Don't do it because you're disgusted, and don't do it because you're kind." That's good. Yunqiao asked Yunsheng and Ding Ling to enter the 2 teleportation arrays first, then waved and said, "Goodbye," with a smile. The 2 women felt a little sad, but they still forced down their laughter, not wanting to show their reluctance to part. The teleportation formation started to operate under the man's control. It emitted rays of light and connected to the distant spatial coordinates. "You want to leave? Stop." Suddenly, a roar came from the sky, and a bloodlight fell toward the 2 teleportation arrays. Yunqiao's face flickered. With a teleportation, he appeared above the teleportation array. The 1,000-year saber appeared in his hand, which immediately sucked all his primordial qi. Then, he slashed out a cold light in the air and met the blood-red light. Boom boom boom. The saber flare blocked the attack for a moment, but it disintegrated with the blood light in an instant, vanishing into thin air. Ding Ling and Luo Yunsheng were both shocked, but as soon as they showed their surprise, their figures gradually faded, and a space channel opened. Yunqiao sent a voice transmission to her, "Don't worry, just go to your destination and don't come back. I'll be fine." He was afraid that the 2 of them would come back, and that would really cause him trouble. The 2 women were cautious people and knew the situation. They revealed a relieved smile and were gradually transported out. "Li Yunqiao, you're not dead." The man was Blood God. He was afraid of destroying the teleportation formation, so he did not use his full strength in the attack. Now that he had confirmed Yunxiao's appearance, he threw his head back and laughed excitedly. The heavens are helping me. The heavens didn't stop me. His laughter was so loud that it shook the earth and the mountains. The cultivators waiting for the teleportation changed their expressions one after another. They had all guessed his identity and were all shocked. Yunxiao swallowed some medicinal pills and began to absorb a few supreme-grade primordial stones in his hand to recover his primordial qi as soon as possible. He looked at Blood God coldly and snorted, "Are you sick?" The crowd was dumbfounded, feeling helpless at Yunxiao's boundless arrogance. It was fine that he had ignored the person in charge earlier, as they could tell that he did have some skills. But now, he was facing a famous expert of the eastern region, the master of the Blood God Palace, or a true 6 stars martial sovereign. If he still dared to be so arrogant at this time, it could only mean that there was something wrong with this kid's intelligence. The Blood God stared at him coldly and said, "Li Yunxiao, I can see that you're also a talent, and you'll be a hero and an overlord in the future. I can't bear to let you die so early. As long as you hand over my blood fiends and the jade tablet, I can spare your life." "Is this the jade steel you're talking about?" Yunxiao chuckled. "Is this it?" He raised his right hand, and the divine realm tablet slowly emerged. It grew to a foot in size and emitted flowing light and vibrant colors above his palm. Various patterns constantly appeared on it. "It is." The Blood God's eyes were filled with greed as he said excitedly, "Hurry up and give it to me." All right." "Yes," Yunxiao replied and threw the divine realm tablet out. An infinite power of the earth spread out, pressing down on the space between heaven and earth, and quickly collapsing it toward Blood God. He knew that a battle was inevitable, so he made the first move to gain the upper hand. 5 northern heaven cold star swords appeared at the same time, forming a sword diagram in the air and forming a sea of sword chi. He also slashed out. "The breathing earth?" The Blood God was taken aback. He was very familiar with the phenomenon of space being squeezed. It was the breathing earth, which had been refined into the blood beast's body and served as the core. He was suddenly bewildered, wondering if Yunxiao had done something to the blood beast. "I've spared your life, yet you don't know what's good for you. Then I'll send you to the west." The Blood God's eyes turned cold. He did not want to think about the blood fiends anymore. If he could get this supreme-grade profound-level weapon, it would be better than anything else. Sea of blood surging to the sky. Fallen Devil Claw. With him as the center, a sea of blood spread out, turning the world red. He extended his hand, and a bloody claw immediately appeared and grabbed. The divine realm tablet shook, but it didn't bounce away. Instead, it remained in a stalemate. The power of the world began to appear, constantly devouring the surrounding blood sea. After he got that piece of breathing earth, the power of his earth territory had multiplied. The Blood God's pupils shrank. The infinite gravity generated by the extremely strong power of the earth couldn't even shake off his blow. He was shocked. Moreover, the power of the world that the divine realm tablet was emitting at the moment was invincible, which made him even more afraid of the super-grade profound-level weapon. In fact, it was just a psychological effect. If he tried to fight him head-on, Yunxiao would not be able to withstand it first. It was only because the transcendent-grade mystic artifact was too powerful that he did not dare to block it head-on. With a flash, he disappeared from the sea of blood and came at Yunxiao. The heavenly sword picture transformed rapidly in the air and trapped him in it. The sword chi rushed around and split his blood light, attacking his vital parts from 5 directions. Damn it! The Blood God was shocked again and again. These swords were clearly ordinary objects, and the aura they exuded was not weaker than his celestial master's giant banner ruler, but he could not believe that they were all 9th-tier profound-level weapons. He flew up and flicked his fingers. Blood beads flew across the sky and hit the long sword. One of the swords was sent flying by the impact, emitting beams of sword light in the air. After 4 loud bangs, the other 4 swords were also knocked away and returned to Yunxiao's side to form a defensive sword array.